people know how to talk to consumers and customers and actually, work together with them. And I've heard the words co-creation being thrown around multiple times. Then I guess you can come up with the great products to disrupt the industry.
Nadeem, speaking of disruption, we all think we know the Gojek story because we saw it explode onto the scene a few years ago. But looking at Indonesia now and looking at the environment in Indonesia, where do you think Indonesia stands in terms of being able to nurture more Gojeks, which is obviously the kind of stuff that Farina's involved in and some of the other people who are here and some of the most creative minds in the country, looking at startups, looking at the next big thing for Indonesia. And is Indonesia ready to create the environment where innovative startups, innovative ideas can flourish? Or are we still, frankly, in a battle between government and a regulatory mindset and creativity in Indonesia?
If you've ever talked to the startup community, I don't think any of them have ever mentioned regulation as a challenge. Frankly, most people in the digital industry think that regulation is just a lagging indicator and that we help push regulations and innovate, right? That's kind of our job as technologists, to also constantly communicate with the government and get them to innovate in the regulatory climate. But it should never be an obstacle in achieving efficiency. The tech industry is just that. It's basically achieving efficiency through structured, high volume experimentation, right? So the quicker you can build an organization to achieve that, then you will be able to achieve innovative products. Can Indonesia achieve that kind of, so the question of the next Gojek is in itself, I think, already the wrong way to pose the question in some way, because there's kind of, Gojek might be disrupted by something different. Gojek might disrupt itself. Whether or not Indonesia can become a burgeoning tech industry, absolutely. There's really no other option. There's no other option. People discuss about technological revolution as if it's a choice. It's not. You're either ahead of it or you're behind it. And basically Indonesia's huge mobile internet population combined with how much, Indonesia is one of the most, I go to India all the time. We have an engineering company there, and the India team is so jealous of Indonesia's mobile consumers because they spend a lot more. They spend a lot more time on their smartphones, and they are heavily engaged in social media, way more than the Indian ecosystem right now. Indonesia is a gold mine, actually, for mobile internet users. So I think that we are going to drive, Indonesia is going to be the biggest leapfrog out of the big economies in terms of mobile innovation. So China has already gotten there, but they had infrastructure, they had everything. In Indonesia, you're going to see the jump is much bigger because we didn't plant roads. We forgot. We basically missed the infrastructure window with which to prevent an infrastructure crisis. The window was about 20 years ago or so, which China did. India also missed the window. So we're not the only one. Most of the world missed that window. So the leapfrog to mobile internet services, from financial services, e-commerce, etc., will be far more aggressive than what we've seen elsewhere. And a big part of it is the function that we do face infrastructure problems. So I think Indonesia is the next, it's the next wave of a tech industry, and it's going to be 100% mobile, 100%, until the mobile phone, smartphone gets disrupted, which could happen quite soon, but we don't know that yet.
How do we prepare for this kind of world that you're describing? I mean, here we've had, and this goes to anyone who wants to take it on. We've had years in Indonesia of talking about hard infrastructure, all the things that we need, and all the big plans, all the big projects, the fundraising, the taxes, etc. And yet what Nadeem is saying is that actually happening all around us, regardless of the lousy roads, is an economic and a social and a business revolution that's in our hands. And does the society really understand that, and how does society prepare itself for that?
I think the answer has been in how Indonesians have been making money, especially the ones who hold mobile phones. Smartphones allow you to sell things on Instagram or social, like without even the proper infrastructure, like what Nadim was saying. People have become entrepreneurs just with their phones, and yeah, I completely agree to the fact that the infrastructure somehow will catch up, and maybe we don't even need that infrastructure anymore at some point. Not in what we know of, right? If one day, we just use our mind to come up with stuff, then probably, you don't need that kind of infrastructure anymore, for example. But yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's at the end of the day, it's just about the people, whether they want to or not. And I think in the last few years, we've been seeing how entrepreneurial Indonesians are, and that should be the biggest asset. Because, if you haven't noticed that whatever the trend is right now, you can almost already see copies on the streets, right? And that basically way of thinking, that entrepreneurial mindset, just needs to be transformed in a digital form. Piracy and copycats are typical what we have done before, but that just shows how entrepreneurial this country is.
So in a sense, entrepreneur now is the word that Farina's using to describe common behavior that's leaping ahead, that's surging ahead. I mean, how does business take advantage of this, and how does this economy function? Gordon or Chuying, any thoughts on that?
Yep, completely agree. So I think in today's 21st century consumers, they are, I would say, very spoiled. So they are used to everything efficient, fast, and on demand, basically. And by convenience on the internet, I mean fast and cognitively easy. So fast, which means you can order groceries and it comes in a couple of hours to your house. Cognitively easy, it means that you don't even have to think twice about doing anything. It doesn't hurt the brain. And this means that you don't even have to enter your credit card twice, and you just enter it once, and then next time it's just a touch of the purchase button. So I think this leads to a lot of, bring back to the point that it gives a lot of opportunities for people, consumers, as well as entrepreneurs, or innovative people who can bring about more value to the entire community. And by that, I use the most overused example, which will be Uber, Gojek, Airbnb. These are really monetization of surplus assets, which is reorganizing and aggregating assets that were not previously utilized by people, and now putting to greater use for people who need these assets more. So it's a very I would say it's a concept of the sharing economy, where everybody has a more shared ownership of the assets and make better use to the benefit of the entire community. No doubt that I think it caused a very structural shift in terms of job losses and reskilling of people that is required. So, but I think it's really how to manage this inequity, and that's really up to our politicians and business owners to be able to help redistribute this inequity to the benefit of the majority.
Well, some people would say that part of what happened in the United States last week was a reaction against this new economy, people who feel left out of it, and that anger simmering there is also a disruptive factor in society that people are going to have to cope with. Although that perhaps goes beyond the scope of this discussion. But anyway, you can tell what's been on my mind.
Let's talk about it.
I think, if I may say something, I think, again, just to support my fellow guests here, I think the word disruption is overused. I have a favorite saying that disruption is only disruptive if you are an incumbent. For most consumers, it is the most liberating effect of all. because it brings to them things they never had before. Reed Hastings, who invented Netflix, has this wonderful phrase, and it's again in support of what we said, is by customers king, we're not saying follow them because they don't know what they want in advance. Right. And Hastings said the key is never to give people what they want, is to give them things they never thought they could have. And that's exactly the reason behind the genius of people like Nadim here. And so although entrepreneurship may have now common behavior patterns, it starts by asking uncommon questions. What are the things people never had that we're going to fill for? And I just am hugely optimistic about Indonesia because you have a chance to solve complex problems on a huge scale here and reverse innovate it back to the West. Our history has always been wait for the innovation there and then take the cut price version of it here. I think you have a chance to reverse that and do something the world hasn't seen before. I'd be very optimistic in this country.